I'm live. Now let's go live. Bop. Oh, that's the wrong one. It still says I'm live on that one. That's really on there. Still saying I'm live. But I'm not live. You lying. I'm not live. My 4G's on, so why is it not working? Portia, go and check on the app on you. See why it's not working. Is it still live on this? Yeah, it is. It's still live? It's actually still live. Yes, it's live. Is it the one where I've got my books like that? But it's like that? It's not showing that on mine. Let me see it on yours. Blind. Videos. Yeah. Why is the other one still saying live?
Yeah, the camera's fine.
Hi. I'm just gonna say hi, Sheila. Hi, Sheila. Hi, Teresa. There you. Yeah, I know. I just couldn't get it up on like my phone. I've finally got it up. See the box. Should I twist it around? I'm just gonna leave it like that. Otherwise, you just yeah. Well, I'm doing English literature today, so you get a bit confused. It's about English. So I've got quotations of an inspector calls, because if you're doing AQA, you'll be doing inspector calls, anthology poetry. What else is there? And unseen poetry, and then there's like a 10-mark question at the end. Well, I don't know how many marks actually. Never really look at how many marks. The teacher just said make sure that you get the free. First question is done. So just like, okay. Not helpful. Portia. Mom, please can you close the door?
Winding the boys up. That's the wrong way. Oh no, I thought you were on your phone.
No, I've just got this up. Because, you know, I need to see what it's saying.
Got some new eyes.
I will tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed contact lenses, am I? Because I'm reading.
Hey?
I'm not allowed contact lenses, am I? Because mine are for reading.
I don't know.
We've got like 3 people watching, so there's like I doubt there's anyone from like who's doing English lit. But I'm gonna start anyway because you know we can go to the start and rewatch it, you know. That's poetry. Social class. Poetry. Poetry. Okay. Right, I'm going to start off with an inspector calls because I also need to get some Eva Smith's quotes down. I'm probably the most prepared as I've got like lots of like quotations. I've still got my Beth ones in here. I couldn't rip them ones out because I had to keep my inspector calls ones in, so I couldn't rip them ones out. Shame. But yeah, ended with Scrooge, my best friend. Yeah, well, this is all going in the bin tomorrow. Can't wait. Let me just get all my pens out because you know I'm like my pens. Love me pens. Portia. Let me write on a piece of paper for you. Oh. So we're going to start off with an inspector calls, and I just keep having a little 1 minute, let me just go back. There we go. Portia, he messaged me, he was like, you better be revising. So we're going to start off with Gerald Croft. Because he's not really expected to come up, and he's not really an expected person to come up. Why is the chat gone again? How do you get the chat back up? That face. Yeah, we're gonna start off with Gerald Croft because he's boring. Joking, he's not. He's just not really an expected person to come up. Because he's just not a part of the family. And Eric Birling came up last year, and I don't know. No one said who came up the year before, but everyone's debating that it's Sheila or Sheila Birling or Arthur Birling, which would be great. Let me see if the live will come back up because I can't see the chat. See, it's still not coming up. Why isn't my chat coming up? I want to see the chat. Can I steal your phone or are you using it? Oh, okay. Guess we're gonna have to go on without the chat as always. No. How are you meant to? How are you meant to put the chat back up? Do you know how to do it? Because I don't know how to get a chat up. And I don't know why I've just saved it. I didn't... So, Gerald Croft says, I didn't feel about her as she felt about me. So that's... Really, he felt differently. So he didn't really have feelings towards her. So he basically used...
Oh no.
Is that your phone?
Yeah.
But not silent. People and blocks. I'm gonna try and get this up. Yeah, well, Gerald Croft. Oh, why are you doing this? So annoying. I'm just gonna go into something else and then swipe that up. Not like it's ever gonna work. Great one. So I didn't feel about her as she felt about me. So yeah, he was using her. Eva Smith / Daisy Smith. Actually, it's not Daisy Smith, is it? It's Daisy Renton. Sorry, it's Daisy Renton. How are we meant to like get the chat up? So we put it to the side, actually. I could know. No, I don't. Wait. No. If you're saying anything, I can't see it because my phone. I don't know how to work YouTube because I'm never really on it unless I'm listening to music. I'm not listening to music. So I'm just going to go through it. With yous. And I probably will not reply, not rudely. So not only was Gerald using Daisy Renton, Eva Smith, he also was taking advantage. That he was rich and she was poor. So I'm gonna go on to the next one because that's not really got as much annotation. If you can annotate that anymore, like say feel and felt is past tense. I didn't feel, like present, which could also be past tense, as I didn't, so I never. So he's using past tense to show the way he felt about Eva Smith, which he claims he didn't have feelings for her, and still thinks it's okay to take advantage of her, whether she's poor or not. But then he goes on to say, everything's all right now, Sheila. What about this ring? So he's basically acting as if nothing ever happened. And also, he then begins to take advantage of Sheila because of her age and because she's a woman. Like, women weren't able to speak for themselves then. As you could say, women didn't have rights. But yeah, like, everything's all right now. He's basically saying that he's basically he doesn't think that he's done anything wrong. So he's like saying everything's all right now, as if it wasn't all right then, as it wasn't, but believing that he was in the right. And still not taking, he doesn't want to take the blame. Also, you can annotate more on that. I'm just going through it quickly because I've also got Daisy Renton / Eva Smith to do. Because obviously I've not done Daisy yet. But obviously the easiest way, what I've done, I've actually gone onto voice memos and I've actually recorded all like Inspector Calls stuff, and I've got Inspector Goole quotations, Gerald Croft quotations, Eric Birling quotations, Sheila Birling quotations, Sybil Birling quotations, Arthur Birling quotations. So I just need to get Eva Smith quotations, but also I need to do my poetry quotation so I can listen to all them quotations in the morning and I'll be able to remember them all and who they come off and how to and what they're about, because really I'm annotating them now. So the more you annotate, use colours as well, because it also gets into your head. So I know that Gerald Croft is grey and yellow, Inspector Goole is pink and blue. Yeah, they've all got different colours because I can forget a lot of things quite quickly because I'm great like that. Strange people. See if the comments coming up yet. Nope. Comments still don't like me. Okay. Right, well, Gerald Croft, he also says, this is my third quotation of Gerald Croft. I've only got 3 quotations of Gerald Croft. So he says, I insist on a parting gift of enough money, though it wasn't so very much, to see her through the end of the year. So he paid her off. He basically paid her to stay quiet. He basically paid her to stay quiet and like stay away from him. And he wasn't taking no for an answer for her to take the money. So basically, it was you're taking the money and you're not going to say a word about it. So basically, he was he was taking advantage of the fact that she was poor and no one would ever believe a lower class person. So taking advantage of her class. And it wasn't enough money for her to get through a year. So she would have to like get a job or something. Basically, he gave it her as a gift. He said that he gives it her as a gift. But like I said, he gave her the money to keep. He gave her the money to keep her quiet about the affair. Though it wasn't very much to see her through to the end of the year. So he was paying on, knowing full on well that she wouldn't survive with that money and she would come back to where she was. So he knew exactly what he was doing. He knew that she wasn't going to survive for long. So yeah. So he paid her off basically, and she went away, and she could afford a picture. So that's how that's the picture that Inspector Goole actually shown people. I might actually I have the book. What we're doing, right? And Inspector Calls. Which one is it? Is it Gerald's affair? So that's page 9. Gerald's affair. Doesn't really say anything in here about what I'm writing about. No, it doesn't say anything in there about Gerald's affair. Nope. Inspector, Birling, Sybil Birling, Sheila Birling, Eric Birling, Gerald Croft. He actually just saying it, don't blame me at all. Like nobody blames. Gerald doesn't blame himself because Eva never blamed him, because she's the one that gave him the money, but he's confident and he's stubborn about everything because it's Gerald Croft and he's rich and his parents are the mayor. Something like that. But he thinks it's something when really he's not. So we're going on to Inspector Goole now. I've already annotated like 1, maybe 2. 2, maybe 3. 3, maybe 4, no, 3. Yeah, I've done 4. Yep, I've done 4. Right, go on to Inspector Calls. So Inspector Goole, he says, come along, Mr. Croft, what happened? So he's basically forcing Gerald, I don't know if you can see me if I'm sat here, let me just check a box. He's basically forcing Gerald Croft. Right, Inspector Goole is basically forcing Mr. Croft to tell him what happened between his affair with Eva Smith. But it's getting Gerald to tell his story and the truth of the story, like no lies, like get it out yourself, get it out your system, stop lying because it's going to come out at the end of the day. Yeah. How do you get the comments up? I'm still having a weird debate over this. I don't know why, it's well annoying. Like how do you actually get the comments up? I'll see on here. Should I turn it round? I'll just turn it round saying I can see it from here. Not really getting any messages anyway, but so Inspector Goole also says she wasn't pretty when I saw her. So he's being truthful, but he's being blunt, but putting it out there that when she was dying and he seen her, she wasn't in a good place. And you could tell that she wasn't happy about it, and she was more put off by the fact that she'd been used. But he's just saying how it is. So she wasn't pretty when I saw her, blunt, but putting it out there that she wasn't, and saying it how it is, because she wasn't the most appealing girl you would look at, especially while she was dying, because she was in that much pain. Being in pain was pain against pain, which isn't, yeah, hopefully you know what I mean, because I couldn't even explain that myself. So he also says, but after all, it's better to ask for the earth than to take it. So he's trying to say that it's better to ask for things than to just be selfish and have it all to yourself. Because then you'll know verbally how, like, what you can get and what you can earn. Because after all, it is better to ask for the earth because it's more generous than to just take it and be selfish about it and not care about the other people that actually live in the world that you're living in. He also says, but there are millions and millions and millions of Eva Smiths and John Smiths left with us, and its repetition of millions suggests that there's a never-ending cycle of guilt that they'll hold if they ever meet, another either Smith or John Smith. I don't know where they got John Smith from. I don't know whether that's a brother or her dad. Who knows? But we know that Eva Smith was actually on her own because her mum and dad did die. So the repetition of millions just suggests that the guilt will never leave him until they're dead. That was very brutal. Yeah. The last quotation that I've got of him is, "This girl killed herself, ... But each of you helped kill her, ... Never forget it." Inspector Goole is again being blunt and harsh about the way he says the girl killed herself. So he just puts it out there as if it's nothing. But he's trying to show the audience that he's trying to get his point across to the family that are still like the higher class, the people who have lived the longest generation. Let's just say that. The ones that have been living the longest generation, if you'll know what I mean. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. And not getting the point that they've actually helped to kill a girl. But he wants them to live with the guilt for the rest of their life. Which Arthur Birling and Sybil? Is it Sybil? Yeah. Sybil Birling aren't getting that what they've done is wrong. But Sheila, Eric and Gerald starts, they're all guilty and they actually take responsibility, and that's because they're the younger generation. Yep, that one. Older generation and younger generation. So the younger generation are just trying to show you. The young generation is just a symbol of change and the way they'll take responsibility. So now we're going to move on to Arthur Birling, where Sheila says, "You began to learn something and now you're ready to go in the same way. You began to learn something, full stop, and now ... you're ready to go on in the same way." Yeah, and so he still isn't taking responsibility. Why does it say he still is? No, he still isn't taking responsibility. And he's not moved. He's not emotional. He's not guilty about the fact a girl died because of him. Like, he fired her, so he's the one that started it all off, because she moved to a new job that then Sheila went to, got her fired, and then just moves on from there. It shows the difference in generations, as I've explained, because Sheila's taking responsibility and she's telling her father that it's wrong, that he's not caring about her when he should be, because it's a girl. And if that was his daughter, it would be a total different situation. So he also says, as if we were all mixed up together like bees in a hive. So that shows them working as a community. And he doesn't like the fact of working as a community. So if you just put like bees in a hive shows working as a community. And also, he doesn't like the fact that he has to work with other people / poor people, and he likes to take advantage of women because they're the only people that are allowed to work in his factory. I'm sure he's like the Birling and Co. Only women work in his factory who are of lower class, and he basically takes advantage of all these women, not in any sexual way, as he's, should I say feminist? Well, yeah, he's basically sexist. He thinks that women, I won't say better. He doesn't believe that women are better because women don't have rights. So if he was to tell them what to do, they would go and do it because women didn't have rights then. So he only wanted women to work in his Birling and Co. because he can take advantage of women because they can't backchat. That's why they went on strike, because they wanted money. But then when they come back, because he found out that it was Eva, he didn't like that, so he fired her because he didn't want to rise the pay that everyone was getting. He didn't want a pay rise for anyone because he wanted the money all to himself that he was getting in. And he believed that there were too many workers in his workplace, so he couldn't give them any more. But yeah, he was selfish like that. Ow. Then we'll go on to, still I won't accept any responsibility. So he still sat there and still believes that he did nothing wrong. So, still believes, I've just spelled believes wrong. Still believes he did nothing wrong. But if he weren't to fire Sheila, if he weren't to fire Eva, then this wouldn't have started off how it did, and it wouldn't have ended with a girl dead. It was never really Eva's fault because she was basically drove to kill herself by the whole family. But he still doesn't want to accept any responsibility because he don't believe that firing a girl drove her to a death. It's basically the older generation don't believe that they do anything wrong. So really, they're all stubborn. Unlike the younger generation where they're actually taking responsibility and are guilty. He also says the Germans don't want war. So this and the Titanic absolutely unsinkable are both dramatic irony because they ended up having war. So dramatic irony. Now, we know This is because I couldn't even get my words out. The reader knows more than the character. Revising.
Which one?
What?
Which
Which one? What?
like what you doing?
Literature paper 2. That's tomorrow, and then I'm probably not gonna do any revision till next week because my last exam until I break up for Friday. Got it, the reader knows more than the character. So by the time we actually read this, the Titanic had already happened in the same exact year that he said the Titanic absolutely unsinkable. Also, he said Germans don't want war. Like, was it 2 years later? Or was it 4 or 6 years later? Something like that. I'm sure it was like 2 years later. There was a war. There was World War One, and then years after that there was World War Two. So there was 2 world wars after he actually said that. So he was wrong because there wasn't just one. It was 2. So he's stubborn and wants to believe his own. He just really wants to believe his own opinion. He also then goes, he goes on to say the Titanic absolutely unsinkable, which is also dramatic irony. It happens, so he was being capitalist. If you don't know what capitalism and socialism means, capitalism and socialism. So socialism is like, couldn't tell you, I'm joking. Socialism is like where you believe your own, yeah. You should know what capitalism, and I'll just check because obviously I'm not going to tell you and then be wrong because I don't want to get them the opposite way around because I'm Imogen Stone and I get everything wrong. Why is it nowhere to be seen? Portia,
Yeah.
guess how long the exam is? 2 hours and 15. Don't be like that. So it says social responsibility. Thinks that the community. Basically, Mr. Birling thinks that the community is responsible. Thinks that the community responsibility is nonsense. The interests of business are more important than workers' rights. So that would link to Eva. Mrs. Birling believes that they have no responsibility to the working class. So she just thinks that the higher class have more responsibility than the working class, which is capitalism. Her prejudice are so ingrained that they can't be changed. So she just will never believe that she's wrong. Probably until she found out her son, Eva, was pregnant with her son's child, which was her grandchild. So that kind of brought her to regret. Oh. Sheila realises that getting Eva sacked out of spite was irresponsible, so she's taken it into consideration that it was her fault and that a part of what she did actually drove Eva to her death, as getting her fired from that job was the last job that she had. But she didn't do anything about it at the time because she felt guilty about it then, but then she didn't want to go back and say anything because she didn't want to make herself look like. The inspector challenges her to improve her behaviour, which she does improve her behaviour. Eric realises too late that his selfish actions were responsible for ruining Eva's chances of improving her life, as she was pregnant, she was going to have a child, but Eric raped her, which then stopped her from... Oh, my leg keeps hurting. Oh. Yeah, it just stops from... It gave her depression because Mrs. Birling wouldn't help her with the baby only because she called herself Mrs. Birling. But the only reason she called herself Mrs. Birling was because the father was Mr. Birling. I can't find anything that has anything about capitalism and social class. How it's shown in the plate, not a clue. Right, well, that's Arthur Birling done for you. Now we're on Sybil Birling. Yay, so fun. I don't think we want any more further details of this disgusting affair. So she doesn't think that this affair has anything to do with the family. So she's being she's being capitalist because she doesn't want to know who it was. She doesn't believe that it was anyone in the family because she doesn't want to believe that her son is an alcoholic, which when she does find out, she's upset, she's angry, but most of all, she also begins to feel guilt, kind of. But yeah, she doesn't know what she's actually talking about. So she also says, "You're quite wrong to suppose I shall regret what I did." So she's literally just said that she doesn't regret what she did. She's totally fine with not accepting a pregnant woman and to help her put her on benefits. I think that's what it was. Because we're going to put music on, but then I just thought, if I put music on, I can't hear myself, can I? Yeah. I won't be able to hear myself think. So I'll just put this in. Yeah, I'm not listening to music. So she doesn't regret what she did. But she does when she finds out that the baby was a grandchild. So there was a reason why she called herself Mrs. Birling instead of Eva Smith or Daisy Renton, because she was known by them names. Yeah. So she's being quite capitalist there about her actions.
If you remember not to get me up tomorrow.
I won't. She only had herself to blame. So she's not blaming herself. She's blaming her. She's blaming Eva Smith for her own actions. and what she's done to kill herself, but really it was all the Birling family / Croft family. Well, Gerald Croft. But no, she didn't have herself to blame because she didn't decide to get depression. She didn't decide that she wanted to be alone. She didn't decide that she wanted to get fired from 2 jobs. She didn't decide that she was gonna drink bleach. And well, I think it was bleach, I'm not sure. It was some sort of acid. She didn't decide that this was how her life was going to be planned out. She didn't know that she was going to get pregnant with a rich man's baby and be disowned by his own family just because of one simple fact that she called herself Mrs. Birling. So yeah, she was being. Everyone was against her. Everyone left her. She was so used to being left. She never really had anybody. But Sybil Birling thinks that she only has herself to blame. So is obviously not listening to the actual story. She also says, can you close the door, please? Alf, please, can you close my door? Thank you. She also says, really, the things you girls pick up these days shows that younger generation, she believes, are too soft, like the too socialist, and I'm responsible because they're so different in the younger generation. Porsche, please, can you pass me my water bottle? Thank you. She just believes that the younger generation... Thanks. Are not how they should be because they're all meant to be like her, or they're not really meant to, as they say, women can't speak or have rights. So that's why she's saying girls specifically, really the things you girls pick up these days. So they're becoming more brave and socialist and feeling guilt and knowing what's wrong from right. But Sybil was never learned that when she was young because she was brought up in a rich family and was told not to care. Sybil Birling also says girls of that class. So she's basically pointing out that the lower class are responsible for their own actions when it's the opposite way around. They're responsible for... Pardon me. Are these all Mrs. Birling? Oh, Mrs. Birling. As if a girl of that sort would ever refuse money. Mrs. Birling is discussing the moment when Eva approached her charity, which is Mrs. Birling's charity case, where she should be helping people, but really she refused to help Sheila Birling. Why do I keep saying Sheila? Eva Smith. Also, Mrs. Birling, Mrs. Birling refuses to Eva Smith as a girl of that sort. She clearly has preconceptions about working class girls, suggesting that they lack morals and will always take money. But there was a reason why Eva needed the money, was because she's pregnant, and knowing that she was stood in front of the child's grandmother being turned down. Oh, I've got an headache. Ouch. Yeah, well, she was turned down by the grandmother of her child. I'm sure she also tells her to kill herself. Don't even know. Someone said that. Also, she says, go look for the father of the child. It's his responsibility. She doesn't know that the father of the child is actually her son, Eric Birling, who raped, took advantage, and didn't care a slight about Eva Smith. Because she was poor and a prostitute, so yeah, she believes that it's his responsibility. It is Eric's responsibility, but she doesn't know that it's Eric yet, until Eric then comes in and blames them for it, and doesn't, well, I think he begins to blame himself, but he starts taking responsibility for his own actions. Is there any more of Sybil? There's one more of Sybil. She also puts, but I accept no blame for it at all. Have I already said that one? I'm sure I've just said that one. Nope. But I accept no blame for it at all. So she's being capitalist again. So if they ever say capitalism, there's so much capitalism. Every single quote that I'm using from Mr. Birling, Arthur Birling, and Sybil. Mr. Birling is Arthur Birling. Arthur Birling and Sybil Birling are both capitalist. You could also use Gerald as capitalist, but I think he's shown for the younger generation. But you can use him as capitalist because he's quite capitalist. But yeah, she accepts no blame for it because she's apparently better than her just because she has money and a charity that she doesn't even really help people with. Great. Why do you have a charity then? Miss Sheila Birling, he's giving us the rope so that we'll hang ourselves. She already knows that it's not good with the inspector. She's aware about the happening and the happened. So what's about to happen and what's happened as what she's done. And she's also finding out what her father's done, what she's done, and she's still got the rest to find out what's happening. So he's basically handing him the rope as a metaphor for handing him a microphone to speak out and tell him the truth. As she already knows, he already knows. Also, Sheila says, I felt rotten about it at the time, and now I feel a lot worse. She's guilty. Now she knows she's part of the girl's death. Her anger, temper got her into this mess, and there's no turning back from what happened. Yeah, well, there's no turning back from what happened, what she helped, and Mr. Birling actually has no sympathy for Sheila Birling because she had a part in Eva's death, and you're not really going to sit there and be like, yeah, well, you're nice now that you're taking responsibility. It's the fact that back then you didn't think of what a girl could do to herself. If you did that, you didn't think of the consequences, and now you're only just thinking, oh well, I was wrong, I felt guilty then, so why didn't you sort it out then instead of now? So yeah, so she's guilty for what she's done, but she's not being felt sorry for because it was wrong. Also, she says, why, you fool? He knows, of course he knows. She knows that he knows everything. She knows he's not stupid. She knows that he's come for a reason. He's come to get the story out of Maul. When he stood there, obviously, like, if you don't know, if you read the end of Inspector Calls, you'll know that he was not actually there. Like, if you know what I mean, like, Goole represents Ghost to me, as when he left, they rang the department and there's no Inspector Goole, no sign of Inspector Goole. And they get a phone call back, and as they're talking about this, there's a girl dying. So imagine if that had stopped then, they could have saved that girl. So really, it was Inspector Goule's fault, in a way, that she died, because they had time to they could have had time to save her. Because he came late, told him about it, as it didn't even happen. So yeah, it does have a part to play with, in my opinion, it has a part to play with Inspector Goole as well, because as she was dying, he was at the house, getting out of them all, as she begins to drink bleach, poison herself, die in pain, already in pain. But yeah, she also says, in brackets, it says miserably, so I'm really responsible. So she knows that she's done something wrong. She's had a part to play. She knows that she's not innocent here. She knows that she's not. She knows that she's done something wrong, and she's going to take responsibility for what she's done. And then she says, but these girls aren't cheap labour, they're people, because Mr. Birling sits there and uses the working class as his priority, like his property. And she's trying to say that they're people, as if that was Sheila in that position, I don't think Mr. Birling would like it. So she's trying to get a point across of they're people like Mr. Birling. Mr. Birling is a person. He wouldn't like that happening to him if he was working class. But yeah, no, they're not cheap labour. As the cheap means that he only pays them small wages. And he believes that they only need small wages because he apparently needs more. Now we're going on to Mr. Eric Birling. He was our police. He starts off with, well, he doesn't start off with, I'm starting off with. he was our police inspector, all right. Now, he's only saying this because everything that came out was the truth. He questioned him on all the right things. He waited for Eric Birling, knowing full on well that Eric Birling knew full on well that Inspector Goole was there for him, and he already knew that Inspector Goole knew. And he got everything right. He ticked all the boxes of what he did. So, how would you know that? Still sit there and wait for him. Yeah, so, it's also the truth came out, and the inspector already knew the truth, and it's also insightful. He also says, but don't forget, I'm ashamed of you. Yes, both of you. He's ashamed of you. Yes, both of you. He's ashamed of his mum, for one. Not taking in Eva Smith. So he's blaming his mum for his child's death and the mother of his child's death. He's also blaming Sheila, as she got fired from where she worked second, where she was getting a better pay than she were yeah. I just said that like 10 times, didn't I? I'm so tired that I just can't even speak properly. And then the final thing I actually got down is I wasn't in love with her or anything, but I liked her. She was pretty and a good sport. Now he's referring Eva Smith as a sport, which if you refer to a sport, you wouldn't really like it, because say you was running, yeah. So I'm gonna put it out there. He's referring that as he's putting that out there sexually as a sport. So he's referring it as a sexual sport. So yes, sport is like metaphorical. Would you say metaphorical? I think that. Yeah, maybe. I'm gonna say yeah because I have. So I was in love with her. I wasn't in love with her or anything. So he didn't love her. He just thought she was pretty. He just liked the way she looked, the way she let him take advantage of her. And he thought that because he was putting a roof over her head, that he could do that, when really it was wrong to do something like that to a girl, because without consent it's rape. So we knew that he raped her, but because she's not a sport, she's a person. So of Eva Smiths and John Smith's still left with us. You've also got Eric. You've also got Eric saying that she's a good sport. Now that could also refer to her being used for sex. Also, it says, I became at once the most important person in her life. Now, Eva Smith was also moral. Now, Eric stole money off his dad to give to Eva to keep her alive and well and healthy and able to feed herself. But as soon as Eva Smith found out that he stole the money, she wasn't taking any more money because it was wrong. And yeah. The false memory told me. I couldn't. So insightful. I couldn't remember her name or where she lived. So Eric basically just woke up, forgot about everything, forgot about name, forgot where she lived, forgot who she was. And it just shows that he was heavily drunk and he was drinking more than what we actually thought he would have been. But that just shows that when he raped her, it was the alcohol with his actions. But really, we only like to say that so then it doesn't sound bad. It doesn't sound as bad as it should, but it does. It is as bad as it sounds. It's insignificant. So it's just not. It's not what you expect from a man. You expect a man to be more gentle, and nice. So also, if you need, I'm going to let you listen to these because these will also help. So if you keep reading over these, going back, coming forwards, going back, coming forwards, going back, coming forwards, this will help you revise the quotes that I've actually just done. So,
An inspector calls. Character, Inspector Goole. Quotation 1. Come along, Mr. Croft. What happened? Quotation 2. This girl killed herself, but each of you helped to kill her. Never forget it. Quotation 3. But there are millions and millions and millions of Eva Smiths and John Smiths still left with us. Quotation 4.
oh, didn't mean to do that.
And millions and millions and millions of Eva Smiths and John Smiths still left with us. Quotation 4. But after all, it's better to ask for the earth than to take it. And quotation 5. She wasn't pretty when I saw her.
I sound like a robot on that, don't I? I just try and like help myself remember it instead of just like when you say something wrong, it helps you remember it. So yeah. Or if you say something robotic, slow, steady, with a tune, it just helps you remember it.
An inspector calls. Character, Mr. Gerald Croft. Everything's all right now, Sheila. What about this ring?
That's quotation 1.
Quotation 2. I insisted on a parting gift of enough money, though it wasn't so much, to see her through the end of the year. And quotation 3, I didn't feel about her as she felt about me. An inspector calls. Character, Mr. Eric Birling.
Just gonna say Gerald.
Quotation 1, but don't forget, I'm ashamed of you. Yes, both of you. Quotation 2, he was our police inspector, all right. Quotation 3, I wasn't in love with her or anything, but I liked her. She was pretty and a good sport. And inspector calls. Character, Miss Sheila Birling. Quotation 1, but all these girls aren't cheap labour. They're people. In open bracket, miserably, close bracket. So I'm really responsible. Quotation 3, why, you fool? He knows. Of course he knows.
Violent.
Quotation 4, I felt rotten about it at the time, and now I feel a lot worse. Quotation 5, he's giving us the rope so that we'll hang ourselves.
Nice.
An inspector calls. Character, Mrs. Sybil Birling.
You can hear me
Quotation
smiling.
1, but I accept no blame for it at all. Quotation 2, go look for the father of the child. It's his responsibility. Quotation 3, girls of that class. Quotation 4, really, the things you girls pick up these days. Quotation 5, she only had herself to blame. Quotation 6, you're quite wrong to suppose I shall regret what I did. And quotation 7, I don't think we want any further details of this disgusting affair. An inspector calls. Character, Mr. Arthur Birling. Quotation 1, the Titanic, absolutely unsinkable. Quotation 2, the Germans don't want war. Quotation 3, still, I won't accept any responsibility. Quotation 4, as if we were all mixed up together like bees in a hive. Quotation 5, Sheila, you began to learn something and now you're ready to go on in the same way.
Oh yeah, when it says Sheila at the end, I mean like, it was Sheila who actually said it to Mr. Birling. But yeah, them quotations will actually help you remember if you keep going over them. I've not done Eva Smith. I'm going to do it for my power and conflict. Yeah, I'm going to do it for my quotes on power and conflict. Ooh, you can see yourself. Oh no, I can see myself. But what I'm going to do, I've got like weird booklet things. I'm just going to say them out and then I'm just going to keep going over them in the morning so then I'll remember them and won't forget them, hopefully. And, yeah. But what else? Right, I'm not going to do power and conflict on the live. I've done about inspector calls on literature paper 2. You've got power and conflict, so obviously you must have revised for power and conflict. I've not, which I'm going to. I'm going to read them and then I'm going to do a voice memo and explain what it's actually about and then read quotations out, and I'm going to do it for each and every single one of them so then I can keep going over them in the morning because the exam is actually in the morning and I need to remember everything. So good luck to you all. Even if you haven't revised, you're still going to walk into that hall, exam room, you're still going to walk into that exam room and you're still going to try your best. So at the end of the day, the only best thing that you can do is walk into that exam room with confidence that you're going to do better and you're going to do the best that you can do. So good luck to you. And also the people who have revised, you're definitely going to smash it. And I hope you get the best grade. I hope you all get the best grade that you can get. And if you don't pass and you're going to do it in college, well then I also wish you the best for that as well. Have a good night. Have a good sleep. And don't forget to sleep. Don't forget to revise. So get up early, get to school, get your revision over and done with. Because at the end of the day, you're going to do it. You're going to smash it. So